So you've got to come back to your marketing calendar. When we do a marketing, and you have to have a marketing calendar. What does that mean? You got to have predetermined events, and they got to be trained in for you to actually get new patients. You have to have a marketing calendar. I can't tell you how many chiropractors I talk to. They don't even have a marketing calendar, but they want new patients. How can you get new patients if you don't even have marketing events planned? You have to have marketing events planned. It's called a marketing calendar. Now, there's rules with the marketing calendar. We want to do one major event at least every 2 weeks. So there's always something going on. In our case, we'll always do the spouse referral. Well, that always happens on day 5. Everybody's trained. They know exactly who's going to do it, what they're going to do it, where they're going to do it, how they're going to do it. And none of that happened by just throwing them in there. It was all trained. It was all baby stepped to get that person to where they were totally comfortable in what they were doing before they could go full speed. Or they would get crushed if they weren't trained and they just knew of it and they weren't even good at it. The rejection would be off the charts. And we people don't stand for rejection very well. People quit. You want to do everything you can to control and eliminate and minimize rejection. That's the system I talked about earlier. Rejection, whether it's psychological, crushes your dreams, or if it's real rejection, that's what gets people to quit. You got to have one hell of a burning fire in the belly to overcome regular and repetitive rejection because of a lack of knowledge or skill level. You got to have an outrageous amount of pain-based motivation. And that's not reality. There's very few doctors that occurs with. Most doctors just won't even do it or they'll quit because they didn't even follow the basic system. And so now market forces is dominating you instead of you understanding the market and then you controlling the market for your destiny. That's the difference it makes when you understand this and apply it. So none of this matters. None of this matters. None of it. If you don't know the basics of how to overcome negative self-talk, fear, and rejection, and put a fire in the belly, and know how to understand a focal point of where you want to go, know how to dissect it down to the steps of what you need to do to get there, break it down to its minor components, put yourself into a role-playing or your staff into a role-playing position with no negative feedback, then build on the first micro step to the second one to the third one to the fourth one, to where they can go through the whole sequence at a very comfortable level. That's the first time we put them in live to experience rejection. I did not send my staff member in to get a referral by handing her the damn book on how to get referrals and go get them, Cindy. She would have quit on me in 72 hours if I didn't know any better on how to train her. So there you are. There's your marketing calendar. This is where people go and what they do. You've got to make a choice if you want to change where you're headed. So if you don't want to put much time or skill in, you've got to go to the advertising. You got to be willing to spend the money to buy patients. If you're willing to put the knowledge and skill in and overcome your fear of rejection and actually learn something, well, that's going to take effort. Good news is you control it, doesn't cost any money, and you can turn it on and off like a light switch. I can get referrals anytime I want, whether it's a spouse, new patient orientation. Now, it's not a one-to-one relationship. I'm not going to go into every spouse and get a referral every time I do it. I already know how it works. I already know if I'm good, it'll be 1 in 3. I already know if I'm bad, it'll be 1 in 7. But guess what happens if you're bad because you didn't train and you quit at the 3rd rejection? You never get to 7. And that's what happens most of the time. Most of the time, doctors don't even start. They just talk themselves out of it. So these are the systems. So we're going to be going through them one at a time, and we're going to break it down into its smallest components. We're not going to say, rush out there and immediately do a new patient orientation. You're going to get your ass kicked. Well, first of all, you won't do it because you'll talk yourself out of it because you don't know it. And then if you did do it, you're going to get crushed with negative feedback. You've got to know these steps. You've got to control market forces. You've got to control your emotions. You cannot just let natural emotions and fears overcome you, because you're only going to get market forces if that happens. And market forces in chiropractic is not good. 8% utilization with a patient retention of 4 to 6 visits is not good. I say it all the time. You're not willing to either spend the money to get the patients or increase your knowledge or skill level. You should have bought a Subway sandwich franchise. You're in the wrong business. And the great news is, because there's 92% not utilizing chiropractic, and 3 out of 4 of those people have chiropractic problems, there's a ton of business everywhere. Bad news is you can't buy that business. You actually have to know something. You actually have to knowledge or skill, or you got to be able to train that knowledge and skill into a staff member. And that's exactly what I did. And then I trained my staff members. So I'd walk in, whether it was a referral, and I'd go, or whether it was, if it was a referral after a report, I set it up. There was the exact steps to follow. They've already been trained in. And I say, Cindy will be in with you in a minute. Well, guess how many times Cindy's been trained on what exactly she does before she was even allowed to go into that room and face rejection? Hundreds of times. Way more than you think. It was not 2 or 3 times and read the book. It was unbelievable repetition to get unbelievably comfortable with knowing exactly what to do and how to do it, just like muscle memory. And boom, that's when things just explode. There it is. Go ahead and pick your categories. I only did 7. I only picked 7 categories. My doctors typically, when I trained them, we would train them in 7, but I would train them overwhelmingly in educational sales, because that's what you can control. And they would typically, when they leave and open to practice, they would typically only do 3. They would only do 3 marketing events, but they were not advertising. They were not publicity. They were the most effective, highest skill level, highest knowledge base. And my average doctor averaged 222 patient visits by the end of their 12th month of practice, double the national average. And many of them went on to bring on associate doctors and open multiple offices because they learned the formula. They learned the skill of patient retention. They put the effort in, and then they learned the skill of new patients. And once you learned it and own it, it's like a light switch. You can turn it off and on whenever you want. I can talk to 10 people and get at least 7 out of them as new patients today. I don't have to wait for advertising to work. I don't have to wait for the phone to ring. I can do that today. These are the decisions you got to make. And they go into a marketing calendar. So that's what we're going to go into next week, is the application. And we're going to fill up the marketing calendar. And then we're going to go into each of these categories individually and go, okay, this is the one I would do first, second, or third. And this is how I would train it in. And you cannot just jump in, feet first, the whole thing, head over heels. You're going to get smacked. You're going to get crushed. And you will totally stop doing it and acting on it, which means now you don't have much of a future. If you can't control the number of new patients you get, and you can't control patient education with a high degree of certainty due to your skill or knowledge, You are in trouble in this profession at 8% utilization, 67% negative name recognition, and a patient retention of 4 to 6 visits that patients will come in on their own. If you're willing to change and learn the knowledge and skill, it's positioned to be the best in the market. You have the biggest upside of any business when you have 70% of 92% of the people that need your product or service, but they're not using it. That is one of the biggest upsides in any business. Any business. McDonald's doesn't have a 75% upside. Coke doesn't have a 75% upside. You're in the highest potential upside there is. And that's what makes all the difference in the world. So we're going to go into the marketing calendar and the application starting next week. What you would do and what I would ask you to do is I want you to find out the money you want to make in the next 12 months. I want to know the fire in the belly. What's the reason you're doing it? Because that's going to determine everything. Why you're doing it. If it's not from a position of conviction or self-actualization, it's not going to work. Human nature is well known. Learn it and apply it, or be a victim to it. And if you're a CEO of your business, you can't be a victim to market forces.